prior to COVID, I think, digital was still something that was many CMOs were looking at as okay, a good to do, not sure, etc. High engagement
Mhm.
platform for them, and it is a preferred
Yeah.
channel for them. I mean, COVID has been called the digital
True.
transformation. Their children, obviously, one has to be a little patient with
Yeah.
teaching them how things work. I mean, I think we've all done that for
Yes.
our parents as well, right? If you know the channels that they're present in, you can actually derive great value out of that. And you have to look at adoption at scale. Today, social media is what it is because it has been
Mhm.
adopted at scale.
Welcome to the Growth Genius podcast, brought to you by Infidigit. I'm Kaushal Thakkar, founder of Infidigit and your host for the show. As life expectancy increases, the world population is slowly moving towards the golden years, specifically in countries like India's, where joint families of 15-20 people was a norm a few decades back. We are now seeing families of just 2-3 people. Youth is moving across the world, and several elderly people are staying alone. Thanks to initiatives like Columbia Pacific Communities that create independent senior living communities, we see hope in the eyes of these people who are in their golden age. Today, we have a special guest with us. She is a senior vice president of marketing at Columbia Pacific Communities and also my ex colleague from Mintra. She has been honored with several awards and accolades, including the DMA Trailblazer CMO Awards and the Exchange for Media 40 Under 40 Awards. She has also been an active speaker across various events and has been a jury for multiple awards. Let's welcome Piali Dasgupta. Hi, Piali.
Thank you, Kaushal. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here and interacting with you. We go back probably 10 years
Yes,
or more.
2013, if I'm
So
not mistaken. 2012.
2012,
Okay.
2012, 2013.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
2012.
that's been quite almost a decade. Yeah. Really nice to have you here, Piali.
Yeah.
Piali, the title for the show is The Growth Genius, and you are one of the genius who has created growth for several organizations. And specifically, Columbia Pacific Communities is something which is really close to my heart because the way you impact the lives of several people when they are in need of help and support. So, really happy to have you here on this particular podcast.
Thank you so much, Kaushal. It's entirely my pleasure, and I mean, I don't know if I deserve to be called a genius, honestly, but I think that I
Great.
do my
You've been
best.
quite humble, but yeah, you deserve it definitely. So, Piali, when we met around 10 years back, your role was more of an associate director for fashion when you were at Myntra. And now,
Yeah, yeah.
when you are a marketing leader at Columbia Pacific Communities, I see that your role has completely transformed. At least that's what I feel. But it will help if you could share a little more about your current role with our audience.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually wouldn't say that it's completely transformed. 10 years back, also, I was part of a marketing team. And now I sort of lead a marketing team. So I think that's changed. And obviously, the category definitely has changed. I spent a majority of my
Mhm.
career in fashion. And this is actually my first non
Okay.
fashion stint. So in that sense, yes, I think there's been a change in category, and that's been very deliberate because I did want to get exposure to a category that was very different to fashion, had nothing to do with it, just to see how relevant I could be in a very different kind of environment. And as far as my role here at Columbia Pacific Communities is concerned, well, I mean, the designation says Senior Vice President Marketing, but essentially what I do is lead the marketing, communication, and PR functions
Mhm.
for the organization. I've been with them for a little
Nice.
over 4 years. I am a part of the founding team. And when I joined the organization 4 years back, there was no
True.
identity, right? There was no brand, there was no identity. So it's been a very interesting journey where one has had to create everything ground up and build a brand, also build the category, grow the brand. Most importantly, ensure that what we were doing
Hmm.
was purposeful and was touching many lives directly
Yes.
or indirectly, right? So yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting journey. Part of it is obviously a growth journey, but part of it is also about, I think, understanding how the culture shifts
Hmm.
are happening in this
True.
country, and across the world, of course, but also definitely in this country. And I think that to me is really,
Nice.
really fascinating, and how we sort of play a
Hmm.
part in that culture shift, and the demographic shifts that are happening in the country, I think is what makes this so much more
Wonderful.
interesting and
That's
exciting.
really nice. And do you also have to interact a lot with this senior citizens or people in the golden age for your role? And how has been the experience so far?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely. They
Yeah.
are our customers. They are the people that we exist for. And although marketing as a function is not necessarily that
Hmm.
customer facing, right? I mean, you have a sales and a CRM team, which are far more customer
Hmm.
facing than marketing is. But yes, I've had, and my team has had the great opportunity to interact with a lot of our senior residents across the 9 communities that we
Hmm.
serve across India, South India. And it has been an absolutely wonderful
Nice.
experience, because I mean, in fact, just last night I was talking to this 75-year-old man from one of our communities, and we're bringing out this little book, which I'm not at liberty
Hmm.
to talk about very much because it's a
Okay.
work in progress project. But I mean, every time you talk to a senior resident, there's just so much of life experience that you kind of
True.
get to know about, right? I mean, they've already past our age. They've had a journey that we have not embarked on, and so there's just so much wisdom to gather from everything that they say. There's so much to learn and
Nice.
imbibe, really. And I think for me, as somebody who is, let's say, could be called an
Hmm.
older millennial, I'm almost 40, I'm getting there. I think what is really fascinating for me is the sense of excitement and joy and enthusiasm that all our seniors have
Nice.
towards life. I think they can beat us any day, hands down, as far as energy and excitement is concerned. And it's just so heartening to see that, because it tells you that age does not dim, the sheer
Mm.
joy of living, right? And I think that's really what we are very fortunate to actually
Wonderful.
observe.
And that's
So
really
yeah.
nice. And Piali, you mentioned about growth, and growth is one of the crucial factors when it comes to marketing. Would you like to share with our audience any favorite growth story of yours? It could be either from Columbia Pacific communities or any of the earlier brands that you have worked for.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd talk about my current role because it probably
Hmm.
makes more sense. In like I mentioned to you earlier, when I joined, there was no Columbia Pacific, there was no brand, there was no identity. So everything had to be sort of built ground up, including the brand
Hmm.
identity, the brand architecture, the brand personality, the brand ethos of positive aging. All of the entire brand piece
Hmm.
had to be sort of worked on. And then, of course, the second part to that was, the
True.
business piece, right, which was about putting together a business strategy, understanding how this
True.
business works, which is a very different niche business, how the sales cycles work here, how what the consumer behavior is in a very new category
Hmm.
that we're trying to build. And what I will say is that while we look at a year on year, month on month growth like
Hmm.
any other company out there, but I think for us, what has been the most heartening to see is the fact that we were the latest
True.
entrant in the category, the last brand to sort of enter the category. And although we are an international player with over 40 years of experience, in senior living across US, Canada,
Hmm.
China, North Africa,
Yeah.
and now India. But one does know about the challenges of a late entrant, right? I mean, when you don't have the first mover advantage, when you've entered the category after everybody else has, you do have a
Hmm.
lot of catch up to do. And it was the same for us. And I'm very happy to share with you, Kaushal, that in the
Mm-hmm.
last 4 years, we are already ahead of all our competitors in terms of brand scores, in
Nice.
terms of affinity, in terms of, preference, in terms of all the sort of brand metrics that one
Mm-hmm.
sort of, looks at. We are today, as per even the latest research that we've done, the latest consumer research, we are today the most preferred senior living
Wonderful.
community
Mm-hmm.
operator in the country, despite being around only for 4 years. And you have to understand that there are players that have
Yes.
been around for 20 years. And there is a clear differentiation that we've been able
Mm-hmm.
to make in the market. It is because of the way we've positioned our brand. It is because of the way we've told our brand story. Well, as far as pure revenue numbers are concerned, I mean, if I just look at last year's numbers and this year's, we've grown at
Nice.
about 30%. We've seen traffic to website grow by about
Wonderful.
78%. We've seen conversion rates grow by about 13%. So these are
Mm-hmm.
hopefully healthy
True.
numbers. I mean, I usually don't like to talk about numbers because A, it sounds a little boastful. B, because everybody else is
No, but
talking
the
about
scale
400,
is also crucial
500%
there.
growth, and we are probably, yeah, scale, yeah. And we're
Yeah.
not in that business at all, because uh, we're not a tech
True.
based
True.
startup
Yeah.
in that sense. We are a startup, but we're not a, so it is not about getting the first 100 million users and so on, because in this category you can't get
Yes.
100 million
Yeah.
users just like that. But yes, I mean, I think to me, this is what growth entails. It's about really ensuring that we are the most preferred
Mm-hmm.
option for our consumer. It is about ensuring that they are demonstrating clear preference for the
Okay.
brand over the rest. And also they are happy to pay a premium for the services and the product that we are offering. That to me is the
Really
result of brand
nice.
building, right?
That's
So
good.
yeah.
And 30% is not a small number. Specifically, I understand the category in which you operate, and that's why 30% is amazing. Really nice job, Piali. Piali, I would like to also understand. I see several celebrities like Shah Rukh Khan, Zinat Aman closely associated with Columbia Pacific communities. How are these influencers and micro influencers impacting brands these days?
So Shah Rukh Khan is not someone that we've associated with. I'd love to
Okay,
because I'm a huge fan of his.
okay.
Uh, so, well, he's not really been somebody that we've approached. But yes, Zinat Aman for sure. We've had Baman Irani, we've had Anupam Kher. Very recently, for our World Senior Citizens Day campaign that we
Mm-hmm,
launched in August this year, we also roped in
mm-hmm,
Mr. Shabana Azmi. And for us, influencer marketing is important, but it is also something that we look at a little differently. We are not really a beauty brand that will engage with 300
mm-hmm,
influencers every month, and sort of indiscriminately kind of rope in influencers, whether they're micro, macro, etc., because that is not the
mm-hmm,
business that we're in. For us, influencer marketing is really very, very strictly, an
mm-hmm.
awareness building exercise. And it is a top funnel exercise, really, right? And by that, what I mean is that when we associate with um, people
Mm-hmm.
of a certain age group who have a certain kind of influence and affinity, well, just influence over our demographic, which is the senior demographic, maybe because they have, they
Yeah.
are of a similar age, maybe because there is a sense of nostalgia
Mm-hmm.
attached to their films. For example, I mean, if you look at people like Anupam Kher and Shabana Azmi, the older generation has a certain kind of
True.
affinity towards these people, right? Because they've
Mm-hmm,
grown up watching their films. So it is about
mm-hmm,
identifying people like that, who are also great symbols of the brand
mm-hmm.
ethos of positive aging by the way they have lived their lives. And it's about identifying people that would be great ambassadors of the kind of
True.
lifestyle that we're talking about. And like I said, I mean, has a great resonance with
Yes.
our audience. So we're very careful about the kind of people that we associate with, and we don't do it on a large scale. We don't do it very frequently, so it's not done on a monthly or a
Mhm.
weekly kind of a basis. It is usually once a year kind of an
Okay.
activation that we do. And as far as Mrs. Zeenat Aman is concerned, I mean, she was kind enough to come and launch our first signature project in Bangalore. She was here for a press launch about 3 years back in 2019, I remember. It was
Okay.
wonderful working with
Oh,
her, as
really
well as
nice. Yeah.
everybody else.
Some big influences there to speak of, but thanks for that answer. And Piali, your target audience, since it is senior citizens who are not many times on digital marketing channels, are these influencers the best way to reach to the target audience, or there are some other ways how you connect with this audience?
So I love this question because this is the
Yeah.
most asked question, and I get asked this question a lot about how do we reach out to seniors on digital platforms, and this is where I'd like to break a lot of myths about the digital
Mhm.
behavior of seniors. What we've actually noticed and what we've actually found over the last couple of years that we have been um, talking to them, marketing to them, etc., is that they are
Mhm.
actually very digital savvy, unlike what we think. They may not understand metaverse entirely, but they're all on Facebook. They're all reachable on
Okay.
WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a very, very high engagement
Mhm.
platform for them, and it is a preferred
Okay.
channel for them. They're all very active on
Nice.
email. They all sort of look at email as a source of information, etc. And
Mm.
some of them, interestingly, are actually also pretty active even on a channel
Okay.
like Instagram, which usually one wouldn't associate with a senior cohort, right? So these are some of the myths that I sort of like to break, because um, we found that it's actually far effective to reach out to them on digital channels, also because as a brand we are a digital
Mhm.
first brand in terms of how we look at
Mhm.
planning media. Of course, we do all of our offline activations, print ads, BTL activities, etc., etc., that every brand must do, because it is obviously a 360 endeavor. But digital, I think, for us has been the most rewarding channel so far. It is, and when I say most rewarding, I don't just mean from the point of view of revenue. Yes, it is the most rewarding even in terms of revenue. It has seen the most optimized
Mhm.
conversion rates. But even from a brand building standpoint, I mean, most of our brand campaigns actually do happen
Wonderful.
only on digital with PR amplification. We do not really do anything brand related offline. We're just not at a stage where we can afford that sort of spends. So yeah, I mean, we've identified influencers on Instagram who have massive fan base. Senior
Mhm.
influencers. We're in touch with them. So it's fascinating how they've been able to adopt
Mhm.
newer technologies, and obviously they take from their children. Obviously, one has to be a little patient with
Yeah.
teaching them how things work. I mean, I think we've all done that for
Yes.
our parents as well, right? We've taught them how to
True.
order stuff on Amazon. We've taught them how to order stuff on Big Basket. But once you teach them, I mean, most of them are pretty fast learners, and I think they're really, really kind of living it up on
Nice.
social media, creating content, seeing massive engagement on social media. So it's been very
Nice.
joyful to actually
And I
see
believe
this.
the adaptation would have increased considering the COVID situation where they were kept a little away from the newspapers. The adaptation of digital would have increased because of that also.
Yes, of course. I mean, I think we saw a phase where newspapers were not being brought home because there were all kinds of theories about how that was spreading the virus as well. I don't know how
That
true
nobody
that
knows.
is, but digital adoption, I think,
Mhm.
grew in general by 2 to 3x for all categories. And prior to COVID, I think digital was still something that many CMOs were looking at as okay, a good to do, not sure, etc. But I think that sentiment completely changed. And I mean, has been called the digital transformation agent of
Very
the
true.
country, right? So it was the
Nice.
same for us as well. Yeah, it was
And
very
so
much the
this would
same
have
for us as well.
impacted the way your advertising budgets or the marketing budgets are spent across different channels, like let's say television, business, digital, etc. Has this created any impact over there as well? COVID or the general digital adaptation, has it created any impact on the overall budgets, how you were utilizing it 4 years back versus now?
So, Kaushal, I must say that from day one, our strategy was to
Okay.
actually be digital first because we had enough data to understand that the consumer that we're talking to, which is the
Hmm.
urban senior citizen, affluent urban senior citizen, because there is an affordability factor to the
Hmm.
product that we're selling as well, right? It is not really a mass product. They are very much digital natives, right? Now obviously it is foolish to want to target them on
True.
a TikTok, which in any case is not there in the country anymore. But if you know the channels that they're present in, you can actually derive great value out of that. And so our strategy from day one was digital first, a because we had the information on their digital behavior, b purely because we didn't have the massive budgets required for
Hmm.
mass advertising, right? So it had to be more targeted niche advertising as opposed to mass advertising, and that's how
Right.
we sort of grew, and that's how we sort of delivered results. I wouldn't say that there was a massive shift in the ratios between how much we spent offline vis-a-vis how much we spent on digital
Hmm.
post covid. But yes, I think through the severely impacted months of covid there was absolutely no
Yeah.
offline activation at all. So 100% of our
Hmm.
spends then became digital. But now it has kind of gotten back to about 70/30,
Right.
which we
Got
have always maintained. Some of the channels that we do not necessarily use very much are TV. We have used TV, we have done TVCs in the past, but we've seen very low returns. Also, because one has to understand that ultimately we come under the umbrella of real estate, and real estate as a category
Okay.
usually doesn't use TV. Because there's
Wastage.
a lot of wastage, lot of spillage. It
Hmm.
just doesn't make sense because real estate is very, very geo focused. So TV may not actually
Okay.
do much. Out of home also, as a channel, we've done some activations. I wouldn't really call it a very sort of high returns
Hmm.
kind of channel. It is primarily a reminder
True.
medium, like everybody knows. So we have used it that way. But sometimes you have to kind of take a call on whether this is making any sense ROI wise, right? So we've not really had too many out of home
Hmm.
activations in some time. BTL is something that we continue to do. Print is something that we focus on. And yeah, though that's pretty much, and obviously all the channels in digital, including affiliate, SEO, SEM, Facebook, Google. So that's pretty much what our
Wonderful.
mix is like.
And PLE, for all these channels that you mentioned, content marketing plays again a crucial role, right? So, how do you drive content for a brand like Columbia Pacific Communities?
So, I've come from a strong
Yeah.
content background myself, right? I mean, I started my career in a publication, and I was in various content roles, including Mintra, Amazon, etc. So, content, one personally,
Hmm.
content to me comes naturally. It's not something that I struggle very much with in terms of understanding it and what is the role of content in business today. Two, we have always had a content first approach, and we've had to. If you look at the category that we operate in and the brand that we are, you
True.
can't win this without content. And I'll tell you why. We are operating in a category which is at a very
Hmm.
nascent stage in India, right? The awareness on this category is very low. The adoption to this category, therefore, is also low. People have all sorts of misconceptions, all sorts of inhibitions with regards to the category. And there is tremendous amount of
Hmm.
education that is needed, right? Education
True.
and awareness that we needed, which we do by building a robust content mechanism across channels. Now, whether that is blogs, SEO, whether that is, the kind of content that we generate
Mm.
for PR, to
True.
feed to publications, whether that is, our digital content, on social media, whether that is the three largest campaigns that we do, the brand campaigns that we do, whether that is our print ad. It is ultimately about approaching this problem, with a content first stance. To us, there is no other
Mhm.
way of kind of doing this. We also realize that we're talking to a demographic that has the
Yes.
time to consume this content. They don't necessarily have, the attention span of a goldfish. They have the time. They are more patient if you give them great content. For example, we also do a monthly magazine called Tales that goes out to all our customers. It goes out to our entire database. It is also used as a CEM
Nice.
tool, right? And this is an out and out editorial product. There is nothing
Yeah.
salesy about this product at all. I mean, we don't talk about our senior living communities. We don't talk about the product at all. It is entirely
Nice.
editorial in nature, celebrating seniors and their lives, and it is proven to be a great tool for us. This is something that people look forward to. It helps us engage better with
Nice.
our consumers, and so for us, it is about content in different forms, and also looking at the various channels available to us and curating content depending on what works for
Nice.
that channel, right?
Perfect. That helps. Now, specifically, while content marketing and we spoke about the other channels, which are the present day channels, what's coming up now is there's lots of talks going in the marketing community about metaverse. What are your views on metaverse? Is it going to impact initiatives like Columbia Pacific communities also in the future?
So, my view is that it's probably a bit too premature to really predict what Metaverse is going to do. It is
Hmm.
obviously the next big thing.
Yeah.
There is no denying that. There are a whole bunch of lifestyle and, let's say, fashion, FMCG brands, even in India today, that have already jumped on the bandwagon. Um, for example, we all know what Boat did very recently. We've seen some of the Tata brands do metaverse activation. We've seen Vans do metaverse, and they've all done it in their own sort of unique way. My view on metaverse, and yes, at home we do have the headset, and I've sort of fiddled around with it a little bit. My view is that, for anything to gain momentum, it has to ultimately have scale, right? And you have to look at adoption at scale. Today, social media is what it is because it has been
Hmm.
adopted at scale across tier one, tier two, tier three cities. It's cut through, communities, languages. It's become
Yes.
all pervasive, right? Metaverse does possess a challenge in that sense, because obviously you would need
True.
the headset in
Yeah.
order to be able to access it. And the headset is something that is
Hmm.
expensive, let's face it, right? I'm
Things will change.
sure the way things are moving, and it is going to become a lot more accessible. It always starts with things not being accessible to
Masses.
the larger masses, and
Exactly.
then it kind of becomes something with a lot more uh,
True.
mass appeal, right? So it is a journey. We have to understand that. I don't think it will happen next year, right? I mean, a lot of publications are now doing year-end stories and talking about, is Metaverse going to take over in 23? I don't think it's going to happen that soon. But as I always say, that whether it is Metaverse, whether it is a print ad, whether it is an EDM, whichever channel that one
Hmm.
has access to, I think it is about what you want to do
True.
with that channel, right? It is about what is that great idea that you have which will flourish
Hmm.
on that channel. So I think the idea is as important
True.
as the channel. I mean, we've seen a great print campaign. I know the world is divided about whether it is great or not, but I personally thought the
Yeah.
Bonvita campaign was great. And it's a print
True.
activated campaign which is creating so much buzz
Yes.
on all digital platforms, right? So I think it's about the
Yes.
power of the idea, whether it is metaverse or print or whatever it is. And I think that's
Wonderful.
my take on it. But I think that Web3 in general, and I think the transition that is now happening
Hmm.
from Web2 to Web3 will open
Yes.
up a lot of doors for businesses small and big, and it would be very interesting to sort of be an observer of
Right.
this change, right? As far as Columbia Pacific communities is concerned, we are always very open to doing new things, experimenting, because we are a
Hmm.
young company in that sense. But the audience that we have, at least the
Hmm.
primary audience that we have, I do not know whether at this point it makes sense for us to have a
Definitely.
metaverse strategy. For the secondary audience, which is the
Yeah.
children of the senior citizens, and if we are really looking to target them, probably it makes sense to
Yeah.
look at metaverse. For the primary
Understood.
audience, maybe
Thank
not.
Thanks, Piali, for that. And this would be the last question from my side. Um, Imagine that you're being watched by millions of people on this show. What is your message to these marketers and growth leaders?
My message is a more generic message, and not necessarily to marketers. And the message is to, just work really hard and focus on what ultimately matters, which is the work. And I'm saying this because, you know, often we kind of get
Hmm.
swayed by a lot of things. We can get swayed by ego, by power, by various other things that may not actually, in the long run,
True.
make much of a difference. Ultimately, I think what will speak for everybody is the work, and the rest is all
Yeah.
just white noise. I mean, how many followers you have and whether people like you or don't like you, I mean, that's just, for me it's just a lot of noise. And I think that it doesn't matter what the size of the business you're handling. I mean, provided you are really willing to kind of make a difference in the lives of the
Yeah.
consumers that you're touching, right? So you can start really small, ignore all the frills, not look at what the latest trends are, not spend like humongous amounts of money on advertising and creating a buzz which will
Hmm.
last for all of 5 days, and still create something which
True.
is significant. So I think I've always believed in a no
Hmm.
frills kind of attitude. It's about focusing on the fundamentals,
Yeah.
getting the fundamentals right. Particularly in marketing, I have to
Yeah.
say, it is about getting the fundamentals right. It is about sweating the small stuff, because God
Hmm.
is in the detail. And then we can all think of growth stories and chase numbers, which we have to do. All of us have to do that. But are you getting the small things right? Are you getting your CX right? Are you getting the entire
Hmm.
customer journey, is that faultless, or are those fundamental
True.
details not taken care of, right? And then you're just
Yeah.
chasing valuation. I see that happen a lot today. I'm no one to sort of
Hmm.
sit and judge about this and kind of say whether it is right or not. But I think, to me, what I can only share with you, what is important to me, and to me what is important is really sweating the small stuff, because in the long run it
Thanks,
pays
Piali.
off.
Thanks for that wonderful message and this wonderful conversation. I really loved those ideas about God is in small things. Ideas are more important than the platform or the channels. Some great takeaway from you. Thanks a lot for this conversation. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Kaushal. I mean, it was wonderful being here and
Yeah,
chatting with you after
pleasure.
so long. I've really enjoyed this conversation because some great questions from you, and I hope that it adds a little value to whoever is, decided to spend some time
Yeah,
watching
definitely
this
it
or listening
does.
to this. I think if it does,
Yeah,
I'd be
it
more
does.
than happy. Thank you again for this opportunity and
Thank you, Piali.
inviting me.
See you. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Growth Genius. I hope you learned more about growth and marketing from Piali. If you did, subscribe to this channel and share this episode or continue this conversation further by adding your comments on YouTube. Thank you. Now go out there and create growth for yourself and your organization.